The Valdris fleet hung in space like a constellation of death, their crystalline hulls catching starlight and refracting it into deadly rainbows. Admiral Korvextai watched through the bridge's panoramic viewport as the human vessel approached, if such a lumbering behemoth could be called approaching. "By the void's edge," chittered Navigation Officer Zilmera, his mandibles clicking in amusement. "Is that thing even moving?" The human warship Inexorable drifted toward them at what could generously be called a crawl. Where Valdris vessels sliced through space with elegant curves and razor-sharp angles, this human construction looked like a floating fortress, blocky, utilitarian, and devastatingly slow. Its dark hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it, giving it the appearance of a moving shadow against the star field. Korvextai's chitinous fingers drummed against his command throne. The humans had requested this meeting in the neutral, Kepler expanse, claiming they wished to discuss territorial boundaries. The Admiral had agreed partly out of curiosity and partly out of contempt. These newcomers to galactic politics had managed to claim a handful of backwater systems through what could only be described as stubborn persistence rather than military might. "Tactical analysis?" Korvextai demanded. Lieutenant Vex Nara's compound eyes flickered as she processed sensor data. "Minimal energy signatures, Admiral. Primitive fusion reactors, outdated shielding technology. Their weapon systems appear to be kinetic projectile launchers." Her voice carried the incredulity of someone describing stone tools to a nuclear physicist. Laughter rippled through the bridge. The very concept was absurd. Kinetic weapons in an age of particle beams and quantum disruptors. It was like bringing a club to a sword fight. "Communications incoming," announced Operator Threxnall. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the human commander. Captain Marlowe Vexithara, a name the humans had adopted following first contact protocols, stood in what appeared to be a utilitarian bridge. No elegant curves or aesthetic flourishes, just function over form. His weathered face showed neither fear nor aggression, merely patience. "Admiral Korvextai," the human said, his voice carrying through the translation matrix with surprising warmth. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." "Speak your piece, human," Korvextai replied, his translator converting his natural harmonics into the crude binary language humans seem to prefer. "Though I confess curiosity about your vessel. Did your engineers forget to install proper engines?" More laughter from the Valdris crew. Even Vexithara's own officers seemed amused by the jab, though they maintained their composure. "The Inexorable serves her purpose," Vexithara replied evenly. "As I hope our discussion will serve ours. We're here to discuss the frontier territories." "There is nothing to discuss," Korvextai declared. "The Valdris hegemony has claimed those systems by right of superior technology and military might. Your settlements are trespassing." "I see." Vexithara nodded slowly. "And if we refuse to withdraw, then you will be removed." Korvextai's mandibles spread in what his species considered a threatening display. "Perhaps you should have brought faster ships, human. When we decide to act, you won't have time to run." The human captain was quiet for a long moment. Around the Valdris bridge, officers exchanged amused glances. The human's reputation for stubborn negotiation was apparently well earned, but stubbornness meant little against superior firepower. "Admiral," Vexithara said finally, "I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about human ship design philosophy." "Oh?" Korvextai leaned forward, genuinely curious now. "You see, we don't build our warships to run away. The first sign that something had changed came 6 hours after the failed negotiations. Lieutenant Vex Nara's sensor array began registering anomalous readings from the human vessel. "Admiral," she called, her voice tight with confusion. "The human ship? It's gone." Korvextai's head snapped up from his strategic planning console. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected any jump signature. No jump signature detected, sir. It simply vanished from our screens. Vexanara's claws clicked nervously against her controls. Last confirmed position was bearing 27 Mark 15, but there's nothing there now. The Admiral rose from his throne, his towering frame casting shadows across the bridge. Scan the entire system. Something that large doesn't just disappear. For the next hour, the 12 ships of the Valdris fleet conducted intensive sweeps of the Kepler expanse. Their sensors, capable of detecting energy signatures across multiple dimensions, found nothing. It was as if the human warship had been erased from existence. Perhaps they did run after all, suggested Navigation Officer Zilmra. Humans are known for their cunning, if not their courage. Korvextai wasn't convinced. Something about Captain Vexathara's final words nagged at him. The human's calm certainty had seemed ominous. The answer came at EO 347 ship time. Destroyer Sekthal was conducting a patrol sweep of the system's outer asteroid belt when it happened. One moment, the sleek Valdris vessel was gliding between massive space rocks, its sensors probing for hidden threats. The next moment, it was dead in space. Sekthal, report your status. Korvextai barked into his communicator. Static. Sekthal, respond immediately. More static, then a weak signal penetrated the interference. Captain Yexmora's voice came through broken and panicked. Under attack, came from nowhere, engines down, weapon systems. The transmission. Cut to silence. Battle stations, Korvextai roared. All ships converge on Sekthal's last position. The fleet moved with practiced precision, their crystalline hulls gleaming as they accelerated toward the asteroid field. As they approached, the tactical display showed Sekthal drifting powerless among the rocks, its elegant curves marred by strange, perfectly circular holes punched through its hull. Sensor sweep shows massive kinetic damage, reported Vexnara. Whatever hit them struck with tremendous velocity. The entry wounds suggest solid projectiles, but at speeds that should be impossible for primitive human technology. Survivors? Korvextai demanded. Reading minimal life signs. Hull breach in 17 sections. They're crippled, Admiral. Before Korvextai could respond, proximity alarms screamed across the bridge. Something massive was moving in the asteroid field. Something that had been hiding in the shadow of a kilometer-wide rock. The human warship, inexorable, emerged like a predator revealing itself. But it wasn't the same lumbering behemoth they had mocked earlier. This vessel moved with deadly purpose, its dark hull seeming to bend light around it. Strange energy signatures pulsed along its surface, and its weapons, those primitive, kinetic launchers, were training on the nearest Valdris ship. Impossible, whispered Zilmra. How did it achieve such stealth? Our sensors should have— His words were cut off by the sight of the human ship's main guns firing. Not the bright energy beams the Valdris expected, but columns of superheated metal that crossed the distance between ships faster than thought. The targeted cruiser Velkaran had no time to evade. The projectiles struck with such force that they punched completely through the ship's shields and hull, emerging from the other side in sprays of molten metal. Velkaran listed to port, atmosphere venting from multiple breaches, its elegant lines now broken and twisted. Return fire, Korvextai commanded, but even as his ships brought their weapons to bear, the human vessel was already moving. Not with the slow, ponderous motion they had observed before, but with frightening agility. It slipped between asteroids like a shadow, using the rock field as cover while its guns continued their devastating work. Another Valdris ship, the frigate Texavala, took a direct hit to its engine section. The kinetic round passed through its shields like they were tissue paper, detonating the ship's power core in a brilliant flash that illuminated the entire asteroid field. How? Vexnara gasped. How are they penetrating our shields? As if in answer to her question, Captain Vexathara's voice echoed across all frequencies. You wanted to know about human engineering philosophy, Admiral? We build our weapons to go through anything that tries to stop them. Shields, armor, planets, it makes no difference to us. The human ship vanished again, disappearing behind a massive asteroid as Valdris particle beams scorched empty space where it had been moments before. Korvextai stared at the tactical display showing 3 of his ships crippled or destroyed. For the first time in his military career, he felt something he had never expected to experience: fear. The hunter had become the hunted. Admiral Korvextai stood rigid on his bridge, watching the tactical display with growing unease. 6 hours had passed since the human ship's devastating ambush, and the inexorable had vanished once again into the asteroid field's maze of shadows and interference. His remaining 9 ships moved in tight formation, sensors sweeping constantly for any trace of their tormentor. "Status report," he demanded. "Sekthal has been evacuated," reported Communications Officer Threxnal. "Velkaran is attempting emergency repairs, but their jump drive is offline. Texavala is gone, sir. 3 ships neutralized in a single engagement against kinetic projectiles. The shame of it burned in Korvextai's thorax like acid. How are their weapons achieving such penetration?" he asked Vexnara for the 10th time. The tactical officer's compound eyes flickered with uncertainty. "Analysis suggests the projectiles are being accelerated to significant fractions of light speed, Admiral. At those velocities, even solid matter becomes devastating. But the energy requirements should be enormous, far beyond what their fusion reactors could provide." "Unless they're not using fusion reactors," suggested Zilmra quietly. "What if everything we observed about their ship was misdirection?" The thought chilled Korvextai. If the humans had deliberately presented false sensor readings, if their seemingly primitive technology was actually sophisticated beyond Valdris understanding, proximity alarms shattered his contemplation. Something was moving in the asteroids, multiple. "Contact, small and fast! Incoming projectiles!" Vexnara screamed. "Bearing 117 Mark 8! The main screen showed them. Sleek, metallic shapes no larger than shuttlecraft, but moving at tremendous speed. They wove between the Valdris ships with impossible agility, too small and too fast for the fleet's main weapons to target effectively. Point. "Defense systems, engage!" Korvextai commanded. Streams of particle fire lanced out from his ships, trying to intercept the incoming projectiles. Most missed entirely. A few struck glancing blows that barely scratched the object's reflective hulls. The projectiles continued their approach, and Korvextai realized with growing horror that they weren't simple kinetic rounds. They were guided missiles. The first one struck the heavy cruiser Zentarak amidships. Instead of the expected explosion, the missile seemed to burrow into the hull like a parasite. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cruiser's lights began to flicker. "Zentarak, report your status," Korvextai commanded. Captain Rex Vaughn's voice came through distorted. "Unknown effects, Admiral. The projectile has integrated with our hull. We're reading massive system failures across all decks. It's like the thing is eating our ship from the inside." More missiles found their marks. Each one burrowed into its target and began the same sinister process. The proud Valdris warships started to dim as their systems failed one by one. "Nanites," whispered Vexnara. "They're using self-replicating nanites to consume our ships." The revelation hit the bridge like a physical blow. Nanotechnology was theoretical for the Valdris, a dangerous field of study they had abandoned centuries ago after witnessing its potential for uncontrolled destruction. Yet here the humans were, weaponizing it with casual efficiency. "All ships. Emergency jump protocols," Korvextai ordered. "We're withdrawing from the system. Jump drives are not responding," reported Navigation Officer Zilmra, his mandibles chattering with panic. "Something is interfering with our quantum field generators." On the main screen, space itself seemed to ripple and bend. The human warship, inexorable, emerged from what appeared to be folded space, its dark hull now pulsing with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. It was no longer hiding. It was announcing its presence like a predator that no longer feared its prey. Captain Vexithera's voice filled the bridge. Admiral Corvex Tai, you wanted to understand human military philosophy. Allow me to explain. We don't just build weapons, we build systems. Kinetic accelerators that can punch through any defense. Nanite swarms that can consume any target. Spatial distortion fields that can trap any fleet. The human ship's main guns were rotating toward a Corvex Tai's flagship. At this range, there would be no dodging, no clever maneuvering. Just the inexorable approach of death. But here's the thing about human nature, Vexithara continued, his voice carrying an almost conversational tone. We're not unreasonable. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the Geneva Conventions. Continue fighting, and learn why humans are the only species to have systematically hunted their own apex predators to extinction. Corvex Tai looked around his bridge at officers who had served with distinction in a dozen campaigns, now reduced to trembling prey animals. The tactical display showed his remaining ships slowly being consumed by nanites, their crews trapped and helpless. For the first time in Valdris military history, an admiral was facing a choice no commander should ever have to make: surrender or genocide. The dark ship waited, patient as death itself, for his answer. You're bluffing, Admiral Corvex Tai said, though his voice lacked conviction. Captain Vexithera's image on the main screen showed no emotion. Admiral, I'm going to share something with you that might change your perspective. Operator, activate Historical Archives. The display shifted, showing what appeared to be a blue-green planet with swirling white clouds. This is Earth, our homeworld. Beautiful, isn't it? But here's what makes it unique in the galaxy. It's a death world. Images flashed across the screen. Massive predators with razor teeth, toxic environments, catastrophic weather systems. Everything on Earth is trying to kill everything else. And humans? We climb to the top of that food chain not through strength or speed, but through persistence and ingenuity. Corvex Tai watched in fascination as the display showed primitive humans hunting creatures 10 times their size through sheer endurance, tracking them for days until exhaustion made them easy prey. We learned early that the best weapon isn't the fastest or the strongest, it's the one that never stops coming. That philosophy shapes everything we build. The screen showed human industrial complexes, vast foundries working tirelessly. We don't make pretty ships, Admiral. We make efficient ones. Impossible, whispered Vexnara. No species could survive. Such a hostile environment. Oh, but we didn't just survive, Vexithara continued. We thrived. And when we finally reached space, we brought our lessons with us. Would you like to know what happened to the first alien race that tried to conquer us? The display shifted again, showing a scarred, lifeless world. The Tormech Dominion thought humans would be easy prey. They were right initially. Our early colonies were slaughtered by the thousands. But then we did something they didn't expect. We learned. Images of human factories working at impossible speeds, producing weapons at an incredible rate. We didn't just fight back, Admiral. We industrialized warfare. While the Tormech celebrated their early victories, we were building fleets. Not elegant fleets, functional ones. The Tormech were physically superior, technologically advanced, and had been waging war for millennia. Vexithara's voice took on a quieter tone. They made one critical error. They gave humans time to prepare. By the time they realized their mistake, every human world had become a fortress. Every human ship had become a weapon. Corvex Tai found himself leaning forward despite his fear. What happened to them? They're extinct. The simple statement hung in the air like a death sentence. Not because we're monsters, but because we're thorough. When humans decide something needs to be eliminated, we don't stop until the job is complete. It's how we survived on Earth, and it's how we've survived in space. The tactical display chimed softly. 3 more Valdris ships had gone dark, consumed by the nanite swarms. The remaining vessels hung like wounded animals, their crews waiting for death. "The Inexorable isn't just a warship, Admiral," Vexthara continued. "It's a demonstration. Everything you see, the stealth capabilities, the kinetic accelerators, the nanite swarms, the spatial distortion field, it's all standard human military technology. This ship was built in our equivalent of a regional shipyard by workers who consider it routine construction." Korvexatai felt his exoskeleton crawl with dread. "How many ships like this do you have? Would you believe me if I told you the Inexorable is considered a light patrol vessel?" The silence on the bridge was deafening. "Here's what's going to happen," Vexthara said, his tone becoming businesslike. "You're going to send a message to the Valdris hegemony explaining that the frontier territories are under human protection now. You're going to recommend that your people avoid any further territorial disputes with humanity. And you're going to do this because the alternative is what happened to the Tormek." "And if the hegemony refuses?" Korvextai asked. "Then they'll discover why humans are the only species to have successfully domesticated their apex predators." The display showed images of massive creatures that had clearly once been wild and dangerous, now serving alongside humans. "We don't just defeat our enemies, Admiral. We make them into tools." Korvextai looked at his remaining officers, beings who had spent their entire careers believing in Valdris superiority. Now they cowered before a single enemy vessel that had systematically dismantled their fleet like a child taking apart toys. "What assurance do I have that you'll honor a surrender?" he asked. "The same assurance prey animals have when they submit to a predator that's already fed," Vexthara replied. "We're not interested in genocide, Admiral. We're interested in territory. Surrender, and your crews live. Continue fighting and join the Tormek in galactic history books." The choice was no choice at all. Admiral Korvextai's surrender transmission reached the Valdris hegemony's capital world of Keth Mortis 12, hours later. The reaction in the Great Assembly was immediate and violent. High Counselor Vexthala, her crystalline carapace gleaming with rage-induced bioluminescence, struck her ceremonial staff against the chamber floor. "Impossible! Our fleet cannot have been defeated by a single primitive vessel." The assembled nobles chittered agreement, their harmonized voices creating a discordant symphony of disbelief. The Valdris had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 3 millennia, their technological superiority unquestioned until these upstart humans had appeared. "Perhaps," suggested Defense Minister Kexvolen carefully, "the Admiral has been compromised. Human psychological warfare is said to be sophisticated." The possibility offered comfort to the Assembly. It was easier to believe in treachery than accept the humiliation of military defeat at alien hands. "Dispatch the Second Fleet," ordered High Counselor Vexthala. "If Korvextai has been corrupted, he must be relieved of command. If he speaks truth." She paused, the concept too disturbing to voice. "Then we shall see what these humans can do against 40 ships instead of 1. Admiral Texkovar of the Second Fleet was everything Korvextai was not: young, aggressive, and convinced of Valdris invincibility. His flagship, Dominion of Stars, led 39 other vessels in a display of military might that had never failed to cow potential enemies. The fleet arrived in the Kepler Expanse to find a scene that challenged their understanding of warfare itself. The remnants of Korvextai's fleet hung dead in space, their hulls partially consumed by nanite swarms that had left behind geometric patterns of destruction. The once proud warships looked like metallic skeletons, their structural frameworks visible through gaps where armor plating had been systematically digested. "By the void's edge," whispered Texakovar's tactical officer. "What manner of weapon could do this?" The human vessel. Inexorable waited motionless among the wreckage like a predator in its kill zone. Its dark hull seemed to absorb scanner beams, making detailed analysis impossible. But there was no mistaking the threat it represented, not when surrounded by the evidence of its capabilities. "Admiral," came Korvextai's voice over communications, "you should not have come. You will explain your shameful surrender," Texkovar demanded. "The hegemony does not yield to primitives." "Look around you," Korvextai replied wearily. "This is what human primitives can accomplish. I have 4,700 crew members alive only because I chose surrender over annihilation." Before Texkovar could respond, space itself seemed to ripple. 5 more human vessels materialized around the Second Fleet, not emerging from hyperspace jumps, but simply becoming visible as their stealth systems deactivated. Each ship bore the same dark utilitarian design as the inexorable, their hulls, bristling with weapon systems that defied conventional classification. "Unknown vessels," came a new voice over communications, calm, professional, and utterly confident. "This is Captain Nexandra of the Human Defense Force vessel Relentless. You are trespassing in territory claimed by the United Earth government. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Texkovar's mandibles clicked with rage. "You dare threaten the Second Fleet of the Valdris hegemony? We have fought and conquered across a dozen star systems." "Yes," replied Captain Nexandra. "We know. We've been studying your tactics for some time now. Your species favors massed formations, energy-based weapons, and shock tactics designed to break enemy morale. All very predictable. The human ships began to move, not the elegant dance of Valdris naval warfare, but something far more unsettling. They spread out in a pattern that seemed random, but gradually revealed itself as a perfectly coordinated encirclement. Each vessel maintained optimal firing angles while denying the Valdris fleet any clean lines of retreat. "You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal procedures," Nexandra announced. 29. 28. "Fire!" Texkovar commanded. "All ships, concentrate fire on the nearest human vessel." Streams of particle energy lanced out from 40 Valdris warships, enough firepower to reduce a small moon to cosmic dust. The sea, beams struck the human ship's shields and simply stopped. The energy dispersed harmlessly across barrier fields that shimmered like oil on water. "Adaptive shielding," observed the human captain conversationally. "Our barriers analyze incoming energy signatures and adjust their harmonics accordingly. Very useful against species that rely too heavily on directed energy weapons." The countdown continued. 15, 14, 13. "Impossible," Texkovar snarled. "No shield can be perfectly adaptive." "You're absolutely right," Nexandra agreed, "which is why we don't rely on shields alone." 10, 9, 8. The human ship's weapon systems came online with an ominous thrumming that somehow transmitted through the vacuum of space. Not the clean energy signatures of civilized warfare, but something primal and terrifying. 3, 2, 1. The humans fired. What followed wasn't warfare. It was a demonstration of human industrial violence. The first salvo came from the Relentless, a stream of projectiles that appeared small on sensors but struck with the force of antimatter explosions. They punched through Valdris shields like tissue paper, each impact sending shockwaves through the target vessels that left their crews unconscious or worse. The second human ship, unyielding, deployed what could only be described as a gravitational weapon. Space itself warped around 3 Valdris cruisers, crushing them into compact spheres of twisted metal in the span of seconds. The screams of their crews cut off abruptly as the vessels collapsed past the point where life could exist. "Admiral." Texkovar watched in horror as his carefully coordinated fleet fell apart. "Evasive maneuvers. All ships scatter." But the Valdris vessels found themselves trapped in spatial distortion fields that made faster-than-light travel impossible. Every attempt to jump to hyperspace failed, leaving them confined to normal space, with enemies who moved like predators among prey. The third human ship, inevitable, demonstrated why humans had named their vessels for concepts rather than glory. It fired a single projectile, not at a ship, but at empty space near the center of the Valdris formation. The projectile detonated into an expanding cloud of microscopic machines that began converting cosmic dust and stray atoms into more of themselves. "Nanite bloom detected!" screamed Texkovar's tactical officer. "Exponential replication in progress!" Within minutes, the nanite cloud had grown large enough to engulf several Valdris vessels. Their hulls began to dissolve at the molecular level, consumed by machines too small to see but too numerous to stop. The affected ships sent desperate distress calls before their communication systems were digested along with everything else. "This is genocide!" Texkovar broadcast on all frequencies. "You're committing war crimes!" Captain Nexandra's response was chillingly matter-of-fact. Article 12 of the Geneva Conventions defines genocide as the deliberate killing of a large group of people. "We're offering surrender terms. The killing is only happening because you're choosing to continue fighting." As if to emphasize the point, the fourth human ship, Persistent, fired a weapon that seemed to phase shift its targets out of normal space entirely. 5 Valdris destroyers simply vanished, leaving behind only faint energy signatures that quickly faded to nothing. "Where did they go?" Texkovar demanded. "Parallel dimension," came the casual reply. "Don't worry, they're still alive. In there. Probably. The physics get a bit uncertain at the quantum level." The systematic destruction continued. Each human weapon represented technology so advanced it seemed like magic, yet was deployed with the casual efficiency of tools rather than superweapons. The humans weren't showing off. They were working. "Admiral." Korvek's voice cut through the chaos. "Texkovar, surrender now! This is what they showed me, what they're capable of when they don't want to kill. Can't you see they're restraining themselves?" The words hit like a physical blow. The humans were holding back. This devastating display of technological supremacy was them being merciful. "How?" Texkovar whispered. "How did you advance so far so quickly?" Captain Nexandra answered. "We didn't advance quickly, Admiral. We advanced inevitably. While you were building monuments to your own glory, we were building tools. While you were celebrating past victories, we were preparing for future wars. While you were assuming your superiority was permanent, we were making it obsolete." The fifth human ship, Inexhaustible, had remained silent throughout the engagement. Now it moved forward, its weapon systems powering up with an energy signature that made the others look primitive by comparison. "That's our prototype vessel," Nexandra explained helpfully. "We're field testing some new concepts. Would you like to see what happens when we weaponize a collapsing star?" "No!" Texkovar's voice cracked with terror. "We surrender! All ships, stand down! We surrender!" The human weapons fell silent immediately. The nanite clouds ceased their expansion. The gravitational distortions faded. In the sudden quiet, only the emergency beacons of destroyed Valdris ships continued their mournful wailing. "Excellent choice," Captain Nexandra said. "Rescue operations will begin immediately for your survivors. Medical teams are already en route." As Texkovar watched human shuttles move efficiently among the wreckage, saving Valdris lives with the same methodical precision they'd used to destroy Valdris ships, he began to understand what terrified him most about these aliens. They weren't monsters. They were engineers, and they had just solved the problem of Valdris expansion with the same thorough efficiency they probably used to fix broken machinery. The age of human hegemony had begun not with conquest, but with a simple demonstration that resistance was not just futile, it was inefficient. In the aftermath, as rescue operations continued and the scattered Second Fleet prepared for the humiliating journey home, Admiral Korvek's transmitted one final message to the Valdris hegemony. "They are not like us. They do not seek glory or dominion. They seek solutions, and they have concluded that we are a problem that requires solving. I recommend we become a problem that does not require solving. The message would echo through Valdris space for generations, becoming the foundation of a new understanding. In a galaxy where humans existed, all other species lived at their sufferance. And humanity's sufferance, it turned out, was both infinite and terrifyingly conditional.